Whether you are a believer or a full-blown skeptic, haunted locations are bone-chilling places that can freak out even the most scientifically minded of people. Many people from all over the world have had many run-ins with the supernatural and paranormal. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 haunted locations and the events which have occurred there. Old Tenopa Cemetery. The loss of life can sometimes linger around. The most common place for supernatural occurrences to happen is a cemetery. A cemetery from the old town of Tenopa is no different. Once a thriving mining village, Tenopa became a hub of activity in the developing west of America due to the discovery of silver deposits in the sandy terrain, which turned out to be one of the biggest in Nevada history. Tenopa fared a similar fate to most American mining towns. Population rates went up and down, as did the town's economy. Still, Tenopa never quite managed to become a total ghost town. In fact, Tenopa still continues to be active today with just a small population of around roughly 2,000 living residents. Tenopa's unaccounted population lives in the old Tenopa Cemetery, first created on May 7, 1901, to mark the grave of Mr. John Randall Weeks. The cemetery continued to be in use for another 10 years before it outgrew the plot of land it resided on. From there, the town needed a cemetery, which led to the creation of the site that still exists today. The old cemetery is one that sees the most supernatural activity. Over 300 souls currently rest at the cemetery, including many of those who originally settled the small town. Many of those original citizens all passed away at the hand of a mysterious illness named the Tenopa Plague. The plague managed to tear through the town's residents, and to this day, the source and details of the illness have never been uncovered. Less than a decade later, roughly 14 miners passed away due to a mining accident known as the Tenopa Belmont mine fire. Other residents of the graveyard include Big Bill Murphy, who passed away saving miners at age 28, as well as Nye County Sheriff Thomas Logan. To make things creepier, the old cemetery is also located right next to a clown motel. Safe to say, this place has got to be one of the most concentrated locations of spooky happenings. Dean Hill Cemetery. The locals call the Dean Hill Cemetery the Rev on account of the many Revolutionary soldiers that were laid to rest there. Starting in 1791, the burial ground began as a place to rest Revolutionary veterans as well as their families. Unsurprisingly, the place has been a hub of spiritual activity for hundreds of years, with the site slowly crumbling due to neglect and vandalism that has left many of the gravestones in piles of rubble. Like many other cemeteries, the Rev has gained a reputation of being haunted by the many spirits associated with the burial ground. Being in a state of semi-abandonment, the cemetery has been a magnet for paranormal investigators, vandals, and thrill-seekers. One of the most common sightings from amateur ghost hunters is reports of spectral soldiers wandering the desolate graveyard with glowing eyes. Supposedly, these appearances are most common between midnight and 3 a.m., specifically in the autumn season. A common rumor persists that one of the graves in the cemetery reads, "Ye who stands upon thy grave shall follow." But any grave engraved with such a phrase has yet to be found. In the modern era, the site has been surrounded by macabre tales of devil worship, satanic rituals, and cult activity. Specifically, the Dean Hill Cemetery is supposed to be a ground for animal sacrifices, as well as strange rituals. Urban legends emerged in the late 1980s and early 1990s surrounding a ritual that managed to open up a portal between our world and another. Perhaps this is the reason why visitors to the cemetery report feelings of unease and an unnatural atmosphere. Another legend also details the tale of a man in his 20s who was found with severe burns on the road nearby to the cemetery, as well as the story of 2 missing teens who were last seen at the cemetery but then were never found. Yet another legend refers to an accidental attack where the victim was buried just beyond the cemetery's wall. One report also speaks of a young girl that passed away after crashing her car into a tree on Caswell. Clearly, the Rev is a hotspot for misery and the loss of life. Perhaps the centuries of lives lost associated with the cemetery have given it an unholy energy that draws in evil spirits to haunt the living world. There's an undeniable eeriness to the place that many people still avoid. St. Omer Cemetery Witch Grave. Illinois is filled with mile after mile of farming fields. The vast vistas of corn help to mask many abandoned and long-forgotten sites that have attracted significant ghost activity. One such site is the St. Omer Cemetery Witch Grave. St. Omer had the same fate as many colonial towns in the US, left to ruin for decades, yet the town still draws visitors from far and wide due to a signal monument that lies in the ghost town cemetery. The point of interest is known as the Barnes Monument, a large sphere made of stone that sits atop of a pyre made from the same rocky material. Not only does the grave stand out due to its unusual design, but it's also the only grave in the entire cemetery that doesn't face an east to west direction. Instead, the Barnes Monument points north and south. The grave marks the resting place of 4 people: Marcus Barnes, his parents Granville and Sarah, and his wife Caroline. Strangely, the grave states that Marcus's wife Caroline passed away on a very unusual date. According to the inscription, Caroline passed away on February 31st, 1882, a date that does not exist. The story goes that Caroline Barnes was actually a witch practicing the dark arts. Whether this was true or not, Caroline was certainly likely to have been accused of being a witch during the witch trials. Reports state that she was either hanged, burned, or buried alive for her supposed crimes against God. Legend also states that the ball on top of the grave is a crystal ball, which passers-by can reportedly see glowing on moonless nights. The supposed reason for the impossible date on Caroline's gravestone is based on witch folklore. According to the rules of witches, it was possible for witches to rise from the grave on the same date they passed away. Therefore, if Caroline's date was fake, the townspeople may prevent her spirit from rising beyond the grave. Other passed-down stories of the strange grave involve photography of the grave being unable to develop, and that the grave has been used as a center for strange rituals related to the occult. And while digital photos seem to be completely unaffected by the grave's supposed powers, there is no denying that the grave is visited frequently by a number of spiritually interested individuals, as shown by melted wax candles that can be found on the sphere throughout the year. Like many executions during the period that Caroline was alive, there was very little in terms of evidence of her witchcraft. Historical evidence seems few and far between as well, and legend of Caroline Barnes the witch seems to be a byproduct of the grave itself, not the other way round. We do, however, know several facts about the Barnes family and their tragic lives. History records illustrate that Caroline's husband Marcus passed away in 1881 during a sawmill accident and was buried along with his parents. Caroline, only aged 23 at the time, passed away only 2 months after losing her husband. Caroline's loss of life was recorded as being due to her developing pneumonia. Records also indicate that the date of her passing was either the 26th or 28th of February, not the 31st. Historians theorize that the iconic 31st may have originated in a typo, and the error was simply never fixed. This could have been due to the expenses needed to repair the error, or the fact that nobody in the Barnes family was left to care. The second reason seems the most fitting, as by the time Caroline had passed away, St. Omer had declined significantly. At its peak, the town held roughly 40 to 50 families and had basic amenities like a post office, a general store, and a blacksmith's. Yet when the Barnes family had gone, so had all of the other residents due to loss of life or relocation, leaving the cemetery as the only marker of the small isolated town of St. Omer in Ashmore, Illinois. But what do you make of these haunted locations and the stories they hold? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.